can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. This is Marcia Teele, your host with laryngitis. And you know what? Alzheimer's doesn't stop because it's not convenient anymore, and neither do we. So as they say, the show must go on. So I apologize for my voice. Hopefully it'll last throughout the show, and hopefully that next week it'll be better. But we are live right out of Boca Raton, Florida. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. There's been this laryngitis going around, and I hope you as a family caregiver, you don't have it or you don't get it. And I can sympathize with you because caregiving is hard. Caregiving is hard enough without getting down and out from an illness or from stress or from laryngitis. And so please bear with me because it's so important. We want to bring you this great show today, this information. I think you're going to really get a lot out of it. So if you're a family caregiver and you've been looking for answers and you have questions, this is the show for you, where we bring in experts to talk about issues that family caregivers need to know about. A few announcements before we bring in today's guest. First of all, coming up on February the 18th is the Teele Runway fundraiser. Now, this wasn't named after me. My name is Marcia Teele, but this teal is different. This is the color teal, T-E-A-L, and not T-E-E-L-E like me. This Teele Runway is a fundraiser that is something that is important to provide funds to raise money for Alzheimer's care. It's a program, an event that's produced and sponsored by Alzheimer's Community Care. So I encourage you to go online to alzcare.org, look up the Teele Runway if you're interested in participating. It's a wonderful time for caregivers. Get a little bit of respite. Take some time for yourself. Listen to other caregivers and learn and share and support one another. And so, again, while you're looking on their website, while you're there, check out information on this year's educational conference for caregivers. That is coming to West Palm Beach, to the Convention Center on March 17th and 18th. This is not a fundraiser, but an educational event for caregivers and for professionals that are wanting to know more and learn more about Alzheimer's disease, what's coming new on the horizon as far as research and cures and help, to support each other, to learn from lots of different disciplines in the field on different topics. And it's a 1.5 day event that is fabulous. There's hundreds of caregivers and professionals to interact with. And I personally have been involved by supporting, going to, and speaking at this conference for the last 15 years. I do not know of one caregiver who has attended that conference in the 15 years that I've been with them that hasn't learned something of great value and felt supported and felt hopeful. So I encourage you to go to alscare.org, the website, sign up for the conference, check out the fundraiser if you want to, and share that information with anyone that you think would benefit from that. And I appreciate you sharing the word. So I have a couple questions for you today. Are you a caregiver suffering with guilt because you feel you can no longer take care of your loved one at home? Do you wrestle with when is it time? When's the right time to move your loved one into a dementia assisted living community? Do you have trouble sleeping at night because your mind won't stop racing? Because you just think of things over and over again in your mind about what you should do. What's the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Well, if that describes you, then this show is definitely for you. We're going to have an expert with us. We're going to address all of these questions. We're going to provide some answers and some advice. So I want you to stay with us because right after this commercial, you're going to get some help and we're going to talk about this. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this very short commercial.
Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare-covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
Hello, and we're back with Marcia Teele, who has laryngitis, but the show must go on because caregiving is too important not to continue and push on to get the information to you. So I apologize that I sound terrible, but believe me, it sounds a lot worse than it feels. And so today I'm excited to have our guest who's going to be talking with us about some of these feelings that caregivers go through, some of the guilt and the frustration and the uncertainty, and she's very qualified to do so. Her name is Dr. Joy Siegel. She is a cultural gerontologist. She finds solutions for life's transitions, and I want to welcome with us today Dr. Joy Siegel.
Thank you, Marcia. And I have to say, you're setting a wonderful example to push through even when we're confronted with challenges like laryngitis on the radio. So thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. You know, first of all, I have put myself in the shoes of caregivers because I work with a lot of caregivers. I know their loved ones. Working in a community with 56 residents and their families, you know, has brought me a lot of examples and inspiration too with these caregivers that are awesome, but they need continued support. It's just not a one-time thing. So the show is created to help those caregivers from the beginning when someone's first diagnosed to the end, whatever that end may be. And so I really appreciate you taking your time to be with us today. So please share with everyone exactly what is a cultural gerontologist and why do you call yourself that?
Well, it really is an academic term. So I wanted to get my doctorate, and I went to go get it in leadership, and they had a specialty in gerontology. And I had been a caregiver for both of my parents, primarily my mother, who had Parkinson's disease. And suddenly, when I learned that I could major in gerontology and get involved in these cultural aspects, social aspects, how can the community respond to people who are going through life's changes, from caregivers to family members to the actual sick person? What are the services that they need? What are the types of non-clinical services and products and ways to support people so they don't have to go through things alone? Because unfortunately, my family took the long way around. So my mother was very humble and very afraid to share her frailties with other people. So she was very private about it. So
I think that makes it harder, because they don't have the opportunity to share and get that support, by keeping it all in too.
What happens in the situations where you're hiding from the reality oftentimes is that other people suffer while the sick person is getting the benefits of having all of their needs met. The surrounding support system starts to crumble, and what was once normal is now completely upside down, trying to accommodate the needs of one person. And while illness and chronic disease are terribly unfair and really tragic and oftentimes traumatic to everybody, it doesn't have to break down an entire support system and community, including the family.
That's right. And sometimes when you're talking about caregiver, sometimes you have a spouse who's, let's say, caring for their loved one, their own spouse who has dementia, but maybe at the same time they're caring for their parent who might have some other medical needs that affect caregiving, like cancer. So you have a caregiver who's doing caregiving for someone with cancer, doing something else for someone with Alzheimer's, and you're adding more and more onto their plate. And so there is no, I think, one definition of what a caregiver is or who a caregiver is.
That's absolutely true, which is why I chose to study the field of gerontology. So what we do, and what I've been very fortunate to do, is to work with various universities to conduct research on different lifestyle aspects of seniors, primarily seniors, and we do it with a very diverse random sample. And here in South Florida, we are full of seniors from all different backgrounds, so we're really able to get a good sampling and insight into the diverse needs from different cultures, from different ages, as opposed to lumping everybody that's over 65 into one group.
And I'm so glad you said that too, because again, talking about caregivers, Alzheimer's, which is my passion, and I know you work a lot with people that are dealing with that too, but Alzheimer's doesn't care what race you are, what economic status you have, what education you have, where you live, where you went to school. It doesn't care. And, culturally, financially, there's socially, there's no barrier that's going to keep it away, and there's nothing that anyone can do that we know of that's absolutely positively going to stop someone from getting Alzheimer's.
Unfortunately, you're correct. Yeah, it's the sad truth. But what we try to look at, what I say we, those of us that are non-clinical in the gerontology field, are how can we look at quality of life aspects, adult daycare, community activities, the response of family members and local governments? How can we support the needs of people so that we don't have a burden on our society? People feel protected, people feel safe, and then, of course, we want to make available respite programs for caregivers.
And
so
we can do that too.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's Alzheimer's is a community and a family disease, because I think it would be hard pressed to say that I don't know many people that it hasn't touched, either because it's in their family, it's in their neighborhood, they see people in their community, that everybody's kind of touched by it, maybe not directly, but indirectly. And we all need to be educated and supportive about how to help, how to even respond, how to even say to your neighbor whose, husband has Alzheimer's, what do I say? How can I help? What am I supposed to do? Instead of being afraid to reach out, or being afraid you might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So this is, so important to have this conversation. And on the show, that's what we do. We have conversations with different people to help people with all of those different needs. And you mentioned respite. Of course, Arden Courts can give respite, and that's one of the things that we push is respite. So, this is so important, and I want to talk to you about some of the specifics that affect people with the caregiving. And I have a few questions, and we're going to go, through some specific questions. We also have availability for people that are listening to send an email. If you're hearing this today and it's live, but if you have a question and you want to follow up, at the end, we're going to have an opportunity for you to be able to contact Dr. Joy directly. But you can also send me an email and say, well, I want to know more about that particular thing that you said, or I want to know, about something else that triggered my thoughts. And so be prepared at the end of the program so that you can write this down, so that you can contact Dr. Joy. And we'll get to that later. So just want you to be ready, because this is really good stuff.
Thank you, Marcia.
So, Dr. Joy, can I call you Dr. Joy?
Oh, absolutely.
I love your name.
Thank you.
And you are joyful, and I think that's really awesome. I'm Marcia, so I get the Marcia from the Brady Bunch, and that's okay too, because people can relate to us in different ways, and the thing that I think is the most important, though, is our heart and our passion. And our heart and our passion and our knowledge that we share with other people. So I have a couple questions that I'd like to start with, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. So when someone's diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it's a big shock to the family. And as time goes on, we all know that Alzheimer's doesn't get better, although caregiving techniques can get better, but the disease itself doesn't get better. It will get worse. It's just a progressive disease, and that's what it does. So the caregiver, especially a spouse, is dealing with a loss. There's a loss of, I don't have the person now that I used to have. I can't do the things that I used to do with this person. Things are changing, and they're feeling that sense of loss in their life. And I don't mean after the person passes away. I mean while the person that has the disease is still living. How does someone cope? And do you have any coping mechanisms and some ideas that maybe you could share of how someone could deal with that feeling of loss?
Right. I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more on that feeling of loss, because it's very, unless you're actually, it's even hard to imagine.
Yes.
because you're looking at the person and they look the same way they did prior to a diagnosis.
Right.
Yet they're not the person that they were. So in many circumstances, one of the things that we're confronted with, and certainly I am sure you address this at Arden Courts with people that know they have to make a change, but made that promise when they got married 50 years ago, I will never take you out of the home.
I'll never put you in a nursing home.
Right?
I hear that so many times.
Yes. So, and then suddenly the person looks the same. At the beginning, they may even sleep the same. They may eat the same. And then things change.
Right.
And then suddenly you wake up, and it could be a matter of months or a matter of a year or two, and you realize things are vastly different.
Correct.
The person can no longer drive. The person can no longer use the oven. And you suddenly have to be on call, and you find yourself dealing with physical changes that are caused by stress, concern, love, and
Anger. That's a big
and
one.
a disconnect, because it just doesn't seem logical.
Right.
And for many people, and I would be one of those people, we want to justify why things are happening. And this is a very illogical disease. So we have to go through that process of accepting that it just is. So,
That's not easy to do.
it's not easy, especially when you have never had to do it before.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you can't fix it. And you can fix certain things, though, to make life easier.
You can, like they say, you can't change it, but you can change sometimes your reactions to certain things.
Your reactions, you can also create a more comfortable environment. So perhaps as the person's going through the various stages of the disease, and we don't need to break those down right now, but we can change the colors of rooms, or we can move certain furniture out of the room and leave things that are special to the sick person in the room so that there's a sense of comfort, which is really what ends up happening when a person moves into a more safe environment once the home becomes unsafe.
Right.
So as this disease progresses and a person can still be taken care of at home, the home can be modified so that the steps are no longer available to the person.
It's a little bit like when our babies become toddlers and they start getting themselves into trouble because they're able to be mobile, and you got to take things off the coffee table, and you got to put little plugs in the outlets. And not to say that people with Alzheimer's are like children, but in many ways, some of their behaviors are childlike.
The brain is an odd thing, and we're still learning how can you work with the parts of the brain that can be enhanced so that we can make the disease perhaps a little bit slower. But that's not really my area of expertise. But as far as the home goes, with the caregiver and making things more comfortable, we can put bigger knobs on the kitchen so that the person with the disease can still open the doors to things. We can get cutlery that's designed with different colored handles. There are certain colors that are very friendly to the brain with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. We could put a larger clock in. With many of my clients, because in addition to doing research, I apply it to individual families and say, we know that this we can say that our research has shown us that this will work potentially for your sick person.
Right, because, when you're dealing with the brain changing, and Alzheimer's disease is changing the brain because the brain cells are dying off. And it doesn't just affect memory. It affects so many other things, as you just alluded to, because of the sensory perceptions. And that is so important. I'm glad you brought that up, because things are changing that affect someone's sight and their mobility and the way they see things and the way they hear things and the way they do things. and a lot of it is sensory related.
Correct.
And I don't think, people realize to what extent that someone is changing in such a massive way.
One of the things that does happen with the sensory changes that you mentioned is that we must always confront with anybody who's going through a brain disease is that feeling of safety. Because the confusion, whether it's Alzheimer's or it's another form of dementia that can actually be baselined and maintained, we want to make sure someone feels safe, and that can be done temporarily at certain stages in the disease.
Right.
So one of the things that I do with my clients is I buy I'm dating myself, but Office Depot, it still sells them, these large desk calendars that we used to have on our desks.
They look like blotters.
Exactly,
right.
that we doodle on.
You're not old-fashioned. If you are, I am.
So we hang up a calendar in a very visible place, typically in the kitchen, and we use different colors, paler shades, pastel shades, to highlight the different days. We could even put a menu of food up there and put pictures so that the person knows chicken is what they're going to have for lunch, or that today we're going to go to the senior center. We can use different colors, come up with a code, not too many because we don't want to confuse
not too many
even
choices.
the caregiver. But it can give the person a sense of structure, a sense of safety, a sense of expectation, and they know what's going on that day. Sort of how you do in such communities as Arden Courts when you have that calendar up all over, beautifully placed, it's enticing, and people are reminded there's something for me to do.
Right, and not only that, they do much better with a routine and with a schedule. And when they know what's coming next, it gives them a sense, like you say, of comfort because they're not anxious and they know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And they need to know what's going to happen next because a person with Alzheimer's, they can't figure that out and they can't understand what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So it has to be provided to them and have them be encouraged to participate. But it's so important to, like you say, a schedule, a routine, give them that comfort, let them know what's happening because they're going to feel so much better for it.
And, I may be an idealist and an optimist. I truly am, because I believe that by providing that sense of safety through the structure, we can have those windows of that person. And it comes through. Now, part of when caregiver stress starts is when we have to maintain that structure, because it becomes very overwhelming for the caregiver because they have to not only take care of their schedule, but they have to make sure that the person with the disease is protected.
Right. And that's where I always say, if you're a caregiver, you better learn to go with the flow because the flow is always changing in a different direction. And when we come back from this next commercial, we're going to talk about how do you go with the flow. Stay tuned.
Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you.
Hi, everyone, and we're back. Still have the laryngitis. It didn't go away during our commercial break, but caregiving doesn't go away, and being helpful and being caring and being you doesn't go away when you're a caregiver. So we want to be there to support you through thick and thin, through laryngitis or not. And I am so happy that you've joined us and stick with us through this show. I'm also happy that we have wonderful sponsors to make this show possible. So I want to thank First Choice Home Health, and I want to thank the Elder Law Department, because if you need home health or you need to talk to an elder law attorney, you know where to go to. I especially want to thank Arden Courts. Arden Courts is our national sponsor to make this show possible. And Arden Courts cares about the caregiver as well as the person with Alzheimer's and other dementia. There's many, many opportunities for you to take advantage of what Arden Courts has to provide. And one of them is education. Arden Courts would like to offer you, as a caregiver or a professional leading in this field and wanting to learn more about this topic, a free book. The book is called The 36-Hour Day. It's been the go-to book to learn about caregiving for years and years. And if you are struggling and you like to read and you want to learn more about all these topics and more, then this is the book for you. Arden Courts is offering it to you just by a phone call. Please pick up the phone and call the toll-free number, which is 888-478-2410. Tell them that you heard about this offer on the Caregiver Solutions program and you would like to have the 36-Hour Day book mailed to you. And they'd be very happy to do that. And then you'll have your very own copy. We have the 5th edition, the latest one out. And if you go to a bookstore, I think this is going right now for about $30. So at least. And so this is for you as a caregiver to help you and in your struggles. So, give them a call and reach out, ask any other questions that you have about Arden Courts, and they'll be happy to give you some information and some direction. So I want to thank Dr. Joyce Siegel for being with us today. Thank you again for being here and sharing.
Thank you.
So right before break, we talked about how caregivers, sometimes have their expectations, or they feel that expectations are upon them to keep things normal, all right? But when we're dealing with Alzheimer's, normal goes out the window, okay? And what's normal on the outside world is different than what's normal within the Alzheimer's world, and the people that work in the Alzheimer's field and work in the world of Alzheimer's as far as doctors and therapists and caregivers, professional caregivers. So it's different. So I said, you got to learn to go with the flow. And that's where we left it. So let's talk about how caregivers can go with the flow.
So I told you while we were off the air that I was a caregiver, and for my mother, as I mentioned before, with Parkinson's, and her name was Flo, which is kind of cute. How do we go with the flow? It starts with acceptance. And denial can be very harmful. Not only is it going to delay getting care for the sick person, it's going to delay getting resolve and acceptance for the caregiver. So we have to really have an understanding and recognize there is a problem, and recognize also that in our community and really throughout the country, there are places to go, be it local organizations or calling a hotline through the Alzheimer's Association and other research organizations. You need to hook up with other people who have walked in your shoes, which is why it's great at Arden Courts. If you go to a caregivers meeting,
Right.
you're able to meet somebody, share your experience, because it's a very, very lonely disease. These dementias are so extraordinarily difficult to comprehend, and you want to be able to treat your family or loved one with the most dignity and humility as possible. And this is not the most dignified disease, and let's be honest about that.
It can be really ugly.
And so when that happens, how do we ask for help for a situation that might be uncomfortable to present, might be embarrassing, yet we don't know how to handle?
Right.
And many people are quick to judge caregivers. You're working too much. You're not home. We had to go inside and help your mother. It's not appropriate what you're doing, and cast judgment. And it becomes even more overwhelming and confusing for the caregiver. So you really want to make sure that you recognize that you have an issue that does have resources, and you don't need to listen to just your neighbors who are casting judgment.
Right, because unless they've walked in your shoes and have personal experience that would be helpful to you.
Mm-hmm.
And just because someone maybe has walked in your shoes, what they found was helpful might not be helpful to you. You know, you might need a different set of solutions, because when you have someone with Alzheimer's, it's not a one size fits all,
Right.
and it's not black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a perfect example, what you just said, of how to go with the flow, because you take the information, but if it doesn't apply to you, then you'll move around it and you go to plan B. And if that doesn't work, if that resource doesn't work for you in your situation, then you've got more resources.
Mm-hmm.
You go to plan C, and you just move and go with the flow, and don't feel discouraged that maybe that one time you didn't get the answer you were looking for.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of a situation that I had with a client who had some dementia, and he would wake up every night at midnight and he would drink 2 cans of Coca-Cola. And he liked to have fruit with his Coca-Cola. So, of course, he wouldn't be able to sleep for the rest of the night. But his family was unaware. But we hired a caregiver. We were able to, because the wife needed support because she needed to sleep during the evening.
Right.
And we were able to rearrange the refrigerator and put food in there that was not full of sugar and caffeine, so that he could still have his meal in the middle of the night, yet it wouldn't keep him up.
And hopefully it was non-caffeine Coke.
It's definitely not caffeinated, sugar-full Coke.
Right.
And not to knock Coca-Cola, because this is not an anti-Coca-Cola.
That's why they created non-caffeine version
That's
for
true.
people that can't handle caffeine.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that was great. So if you want your Coke, you can have your Coke and drink it too.
Right. So with this family, we were able to, and again, every few months we would have to modify it. So this was a temporary fix, but it met the needs until we had to address the next obstacle, until ultimately the issues became 24-hour, and we had to turn to outside help, because of course what we have to consider is the budget.
Well, that was why I said, in the beginning of the show, some caregivers really feel guilty knowing that they are not able to handle it at home anymore, and they feel bad about themselves if they do have to ask for outside help. So, you want to say to them, look, don't be a martyr, first of all, and realize that one person can't do this.
The other thing that we like to teach people that I believe in, it's really a philosophical, and frankly, you've had so much experience with this, but we need to explain to people that while on the outside it's the person, but on the inside it's not the same person that we made that promise to. As we mentioned before, I will not put you in a nursing home. And this disease should not take down the whole sphere of support.
Because they feel like they're breaking a promise, and that's and they feel they can't live with themselves if they break a promise that they made their vows when they were married, to love and cherish till death do us part.
And as you and I both know, the statistics of what happens to caregivers as far as death and stroke are very, very high. And oftentimes we see the caregivers getting sicker than the sick person with Alzheimer's or dementia. And that becomes a tragic situation because then you're forced into crisis mode.
Right.
And at that point in time, the family has a much bigger problem on their hands.
Right. And what I tell people when they say, I don't want to break my promise, I said, if you made a promise to love and cherish and take care of that person in the best way you know how, and that's what your intent is, because you have to look at intent. And if taking care of them means getting outside help, bringing it into the home, or it means going and moving into, an assisted living community specifically for dementia like Arden Courts, or any other, even a nursing home if that's what it comes to, if that's what's going to be the best for that person, because I tell caregivers all the time, you have to have a mindset change. You have to say, I'm not doing this to him. I'm doing this for him.
That's a great way to put it. And I'm going to, the other thing that is offered in community life, and one of the things that really can help with the disease as far as improvement is nutrition. And when we can explain to people that by putting your love, one of the benefits of living in a community, first of all, you can live there with them. Mm-hmm. And secondly, you're going to have your nutritional and hydration needs met, which really do help stave off the disease progression on some level. Nutrition is utterly important because without it, you will get sicker faster.
Right.
We know with it, you'll at least feel better.
You'll feel better. You might, it might not, really do anything to cure it, but you're going to feel better. And you're right about the hydration, because a lot of people don't realize that it's so important to hydrate, even more so than normal people with dementia and Alzheimer's, because they don't think on their own about drinking. They don't have their brain can't tell their body all the time, oh, I'm thirsty, mm-hmm. I need to drink.
Right.
So then what happens is they end up getting dehydrated, and then another whole host of problems ensue.
Exactly.
So this is all information that, we're imparting to caregivers. So don't feel guilty if you need help, right? Go with the flow. That's also very important. And learn how to get help from other people, and don't fear that you're doing anything necessarily wrong, because no one's going to judge you if you have the heart and the will and the intent to do the best you can.
And oftentimes, getting help from other people may be that you're allowed to have a nap.
Yeah.
Often caregivers become sleep deprived, and the world is not pretty. I know I need a lot of sleep, and I'm not a caregiver right now.
That's right.
And when a caregiver can get a right amount of sleep, the world is much better in perspective, and they're able to be much more helpful.
That's right. So when we come back from our last commercial break, we're going to be talking to Dr. Joy about ideas to help caregivers take care of them. Okay? We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
Hi, everybody, and we're back. The voice is getting worse, but my passion is getting better and hotter. So thank you for indulging and staying with us. We bring the show to you live every week. And I know that caregivers and professionals have questions, so we're offering to you to send an email if you have a question about anything, and we'll address it on the show. So please write down my email address. It's my name, Marcia, Marcia, dot, last name is Teele, Teele, at Arden, ARDEN, dash, courts, COURTS.com. So it's Marcia.Teele at arden-courts.com. If you have a question, if you have a suggestion of something you would like for us to talk about on the program, send an email and we'll be very happy to address that for you. So we have Dr. Joyce Siegel. We're talking about caregivers, all kinds of great ideas and advice for caregivers. And we're up to caregivers learning how to take care of themselves. So you just mentioned sleep before we went to break. We only have a few minutes left. So we want to talk about another couple ideas that caregivers can do to take care of themselves, to make caregiving better for them.
I'm really into support groups. I think it's a great way to, if you're lucky, you might make a few friends, but really to get some information. How do you handle certain situations? This is something that happened at home. You're with your peers. You're with people that can understand, that are non-judgmental, and you're going to be guided by a professional who'll be able to give advice and support you.
Correct.
So you know you're not alone. That's one of the toughest parts about caregiving, is how lonely it feels that you are stuck with this unexpected journey. So how can you make it better? The other thing is to take care of yourself. Enjoy your work. Try to exercise. I should listen to myself a little bit more in that area.
We all need to do more,
right?
sure.
But if you want to eat healthy yourself, you want to also set time at night. I am really big into meditation, and it's a very tough things, but we have technology available that's very, very helpful, that allows you 5 minutes of guided meditation. You can use YouTube to find free guided meditations that will enable you to kind of get out of your head and then go back to your job, and you'll feel real energy. On a certain level, it's a blessing to be able to be a caregiver.
Yeah.
Because not everybody gets to experience giving back to people who gave to you. You want to keep that in perspective because there does come a time, as mentioned, where it can impact your personal health because it becomes so demanding.
And speaking of a caregiver who has the opportunity to give back to someone who gave to you, adult children who are doing caregiving for their parents. That's another whole different, topic, but, address that to adult children who are caring for their parents.
I think it's really important for adult children to ask their parents what would they like. And maybe they should do the questioning when they bring over dinner. Surprise, I brought over mom's favorite meal. And my mother used to love the grilled chicken at a drive-in restaurant. I used to bring her chicken. And my father would be able to relax for a little bit. But what adult children have to really do is have patience. They have to not make presumptions about what's best for their parents. Initially, they have to listen. And the parents really have to be honest. And both of these are difficult to do. So if the children can go over there and really deal with their own grief and loss, they have to address that and realize that by cooking for their parents, by sitting with their mother or father for an hour and a half, there's very little that is required on that level when there is another full-time caregiver.
Right.
So we can keep it in perspective without allowing it to take over our life.
Because, it can take over your life. And if you're an adult child, as a caregiver, it's hard to also be the son or the daughter in the true role of a son and daughter because the caregiving and the responsibilities kind of overlap.
And many of these diseases don't take a break at certain stages. So we have 24-hour active diseased brains. So the child can get sucked in to, remember the character Gumby?
Yeah.
I often feel like a rubber band. They're pulled in 5 different directions when they're in fact, they need to set boundaries. This is what I'm raising children. This is what I'm capable of doing. If we need to make change and seek professional help, if we need to go to Arden courts, if we need to look at alternative methods of care so that everybody can be healthier, we need to really do it. And together they can make the decisions. Having said that, I cannot stress enough that children, whether it be out of grief, fear, or guilt, should not make presumptions about diagnosing their parents or planning for their parents' care without seeking professional help.
That's very, very good advice. I have a question for you. As the gerontologist, do you work one-on-one with caregivers?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Coming up with plans. I'll assess the house. We'll look at the colors. Music is a huge part of what I do.
Music is always a good idea.
I have sat and watched, we have a very big Jewish population here. I have watched Fiddler on the Roof with people with further into their disease of Alzheimer's who know every word to the movie and sing along.
Of course.
I try to connect with people on a level that's appropriate and makes everybody comfortable and then make recommendations accordingly.
And in your recommendations, take into account their particular lifestyle, their situation. So it's really customized what you do.
It's about, and their budget. It may be that once a week we just listen to music. If they respond to Frank Sinatra or Elvis Presley, I've danced with people in their homes. I've connected on that level. I've gone to assisted, communities typically provide these services. But when a family keeps a person at home with a caregiver, we come up with a plan that makes things safer.
Right. And I always say staying at home is good until it's not, and that's where you come in. So please share with everybody how they can reach you.
The best way to reach me is on my phone, and I am always available. I prefer until 6 p.m.
Okay.
However, if
And
in a
what's your number?
crisis, I am absolutely there for you. My phone number is 954-328-2391.
Okay, so you've got that because I told you to keep your paper handy. You've got the email address. And don't forget to call the toll-free number of Arden Courts. Ask for your book, The 36-Hour Day, so you'll learn even more. Send us an email at marcia.teele@arden-courts.com with anything that you want to know. And keep watching, keep listening, and don't give up. There's always help out there, no matter where you might get it. So until next time, stay well, and don't forget, give somebody a hug. We'll see you next week. Take care, and I will too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.